Morning. Today we're going to talk about family relationships and we're going to cover three topics. So, the first is the definition of family and our perspective on it. When you change your perspective, everything around um, everything around that relating to that situation completely changes. Second, we're going to talk about issues, dealing with them, and internalizing them, and what we can do to handle them better. And finally, we're going to talk about drawing that line in the sand. So the opportunity that each and every one of us has to do family differently as the head of our own families. So, according to the dictionary, family is biological. It's mom, dad. In some cases, it's a guardian, grandma, extended family. It's everyone who has a title, aunt, uncle, cousin. Um, that's what family is um, defined as. And we'd like to change this perspective. I believe that family is everyone you encounter on a day-to-day basis and everyone in the entire world. Literally. I believe that family is each and every human being on the planet. And if people walked in that and reacted from that standpoint, I believe things would drastically change. Um, the reason that it's important to view family in that way is because your perspective should be others oriented. It should be in this mindset of, okay, how can I honor this person the way that I would honor my younger sister? How can I share with them and encourage them? How can I share my perspective with them in a way that would carry the same weight and care and compassion as it would if I was talking to my grandmother or my mother or someone in my family that I really respect? Your level of respect changes when you honor people and you view them as family, as kinship, as an important part of your life. If each and every person you encountered was viewed as an important part of your life, things would definitely change. So the next thing we'll cover is issues. So I've heard many stories about people who say their family members have done terrible things either to them or to other people, and people do really horrid things to one another. That is definitely the case, and to have this perspective doesn't mean that the other people's actions are alright. You know, abuse and neglect and just being rude and unappreciative, all the things that family members do to one another and people do to one another in general, it doesn't excuse what they've done. However, I think you'll find that it's very freeing. So, for example, uh, there are many things just in communication that I wish I had growing up with family members. I wish that it was more open. I wish that there were less requirements for me to be able to discuss things. So, for example, you couldn't discuss certain things like before a certain age, which on one hand is understandable. You know, parents don't believe that they'll have to talk about touchy subjects until their children reach a certain age. But what if the child has questions before then? You know, what if the child needs to understand their sense of value and purpose and their dreams at a younger age so that they can have those answers from you and from a place of compassion and love, as opposed to from other people who will love to answer those questions and, you know, may lead the child astray. Um, you know, there are things that I wish I would have been able to mirror. So another problem in a lot of families is that the family members have plenty of advice and suggestions. However, they don't live out these things, and that's very confusing and disheartening to the child. So basically, the child is like, if you say I shouldn't drink and drive, but we got in a car crash last night because you did that, what example are you leading from? And that lesson, however important it is, immediately loses its value when it isn't accompanied by a proper example. Um, so I would just encourage everyone and anyone who's listening to really live from a perspective of how can you show this other person love and demonstrate that proper example towards them, whether or not, one, they deserve it, whether or not, two, they seem to be responsive, and whether or not, three, they have ever done the same thing or ever will, um, you know, do the right thing as it relates to this circumstance. Um, you know, I believe that when we respond to people and when we interact with people from a place of, I'm going to do this, I'm going to love you, I'm going to honor you, I'm going to respect you, I'm going to share with you, I'm going to treat you um, the way that you deserve to be treated, whether or not you ever say thank you and do the same thing back for me. I think that for yourself, you're freeing yourself. It takes a lot of energy to hate and to avoid and to ignore and to neglect and to just, you know, punish people for what they've done. And it takes swallowing your pride, being the bigger person to say, you know what, I know how you're treating me and I don't deserve it. However, I'm going to continue to treat you the way that you deserve. And if one day that catches on and it becomes contagious and your heart is softened by what I'm doing, that is excellent. And if that day never comes, I'm going to continue, because in life, being the bigger person is not an option. It's a necessity. It is completely just like one of the most important things you could ever do. And from a Christian standpoint, it's what we were literally called to do. We were literally called to put aside our pride and our feelings, our sense of entitlement, and what we think they owe us and what we think they should be doing. And you know what? Treat them the way that Jesus treated us. Treat them the way that God has treated us. Because he wasn't picky. He didn't compartmentalize. He didn't say, I'm going to bless you Wednesday through Saturday, but every other day you're on your own. He didn't say, I'm going to die for this half of the world and not for this half of the world. He didn't say, I'm going to do a miracle for these thousands of people, but I'm going to skip Lazarus. I'm going to skip so and so. He didn't say that because he understood that his life was literally purpose to love God and to serve others. Our lives are purposed for the same thing: love God and serve others. That's it. That's it. And when you live from that perspective, everything changes. Finally, I want to discuss this line in the sand that we can draw to do things differently the next time around. You'll never again be a child, and be in those circumstances. However, once you become head of your own family, you can identify, okay, what was it that I wish someone would have told me? What was it that I wish I would have had the opportunity or the freedom to do? What was it that I just needed that I had to get from someplace else, and that turned out really badly for me? Or what was it that I wish, my parents or family members would have been more open to discussing with me? What level of humility did I want them to have? What level of, discipline that I realized that I needed but didn't know how to attain? You can ask yourself all these questions and really decide how to implement these things into your own family. So, for example, I believe that I always knew the quality of life, and my quality of discipline and ability to obey instruction should be high. I knew that. I knew that it was important for a child to obey their parents. I knew that it was important to develop skills of time management and show up to places on time and put your all into work that you do, and respect others no matter what. I knew these things. However, I attribute my success in certain areas um, to just the characteristics that I was born with, and my upbringing helped to kind of hammer them in, but I kind of wish that certain questions were allowed and certain conversations were allowed. You know, I kind of wish that I could sit down with mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and uncle and aunts and say, hey, you know what, I really was uncomfortable when you said blah, 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 blah. And I was uncomfortable because of such and such and such. And I really wish that we could have open dialogue about what things we could change and what things I should be, looking into and changing. Also, what things you should change. The Bible says, honor your mother and father, respect them, and love them above all else. Um, an unruly child is a disgrace to their family. I completely agree. I also wish that I could have shared my mind, not from a disrespectful, you need to get together standpoint, but just there are things that I needed and I knew that I needed, but I wasn't really allowed to need anything or to have an opinion. So in my family, I would want to change that. I would want to create a time for an open dialogue with my children where we're honestly saying, okay, you have this tendency to do such and such and such, and it's really hurtful. And I feel I would be best honored if you changed it. This would require a lot of pride swallowing and a lot of saying, you know what, I'm the parent here, but the success of my parenting isn't based on what questionnaires I can answer with 100% or what other parents think I'm doing or what me and my husband think I'm doing. Honestly, the love of parenting is, how do you feel as the child with what you're receiving? And the level of, discipline that you have as a child isn't measured by what you think you did or you were good this year or you did your homework on time, such and such and such and such, but it has to do with how do I feel your attitude is, how do I feel your work ethic is, how do I feel that you respect people that you're around, how do I feel that the principles that I'm sharing are really showing up and becoming visible in your life. I would love to have that open dialogue because I personally feel that it's super important and it will change the way that we both do life. So these are the things that I feel family is all about, and I feel that it's important to be the bigger person and swallow our pride and honor in spite of whether or not the other person deserves it. I feel that family is every single person that you come in contact with. It's the bus driver, it's the train driver, it's the person walking slow in front of you, it's the person who cuts you off, it's the person who doesn't respect you, it's the person who just never feels that it's important to say sorry. Uh, it's all those people, and we need to treat them as such. And also, we have an amazing opportunity to implement what you've always wanted in your own family. So let's take these things into consideration. This is open for discussion. I would definitely want to know if you agree or disagree and why. I want to know what lines in the sand you're going to draw. I want to know what family means to you. I want to know what issues are difficult for you, and if you need help or prayer concerning any of these. And I would love to hear what it is that you have to share. Thanks. Have a great day.